Attorney Eugenio Toto Villareal, the founding partner of Escudero Marasigan Valiente and EH Villareal Law, to introduce our next panel speakers. Hello, Attorney Toto.
Good afternoon mga ka-OSHMate at ka-TGFI. Welcome dito sa ating Day 2 of our Affordable Housing Summit 2021. Ito pong inyong lingkod, Attorney Toto Villareal, founding partner of Escudero Marasigan Valiente and EH Villareal of EMSA Law. Nagtuturo rin po ako sa Ateneo de Manila Law School at sa University of Asia and the Pacific. Nagle-lecture rin po tayo at the University of the Philippines Law Center. And kung nanonood po kayo ng sine dati, ako po ang former chairperson of the Movie and Television Review and Classification Board. I'll be moderating this fireside chat about rights and responsibilities of homeowners. For sure, by this time, you have learned a lot about affordable housing. Baka gusto niyo nang bumili. And now, may I introduce our esteemed panel of speakers for this session. First, we have Attorney Joyce Villanueva. She graduated with honors in BS Economics and Public Policy, and of course, got her Bachelor of Laws both from the San Beda University in Manila. In-emphasize talaga Manila. Yan. Okay. Hindi po USB, SBU. Yan. And took and passed the February 2016. Hindi ba dapat dito ay JD? Okay. Anyway, she's more than qualified. Took and passed the February 2016 Real Estate Brokers Licensure exams, followed by the November 2016 bar exams and the January 2017 Insurance Board exams. A certified public speaker, columnist of the Filipino magazine, The Lawyer's Corner, a criminal law professor, corporate secretary of Diamond V Corporation, and currently chapter secretary of the Integrated Bar of the Philippines, Aklan chapter. Mayad nga hapon sa imo, Attorney Joyce Villanueva. Welcome.
Mayad nga hapon man, kimo Attorney Toto and Attorney Ling. So I am Attorney Joyce Villanueva and I am based here in Calibo, Aklan. I am a private practitioner and I am also a licensed real estate broker. So ako lang po ang nag-iisang real estate broker and lawyer dito po sa Aklan. I am also the corporate secretary of Diamond V Corporation. Currently, we are engaged with a leasing commercial complex, no? And I finished my degree from San Beda College. I finished BS in Economics and Public Policy, as well as my Bachelor of Laws in San Beda College, Manila. So that is all. Thank you.
We'll see you again, Attorney Joyce, later in our question and answer segment. We now go to our next speaker who's joining us today. I told her during the informal discussion that I've seen and heard her in some fora already. No? So parang na-starstruck ako. No? Yan. So she's a graduate of AB International Studies as well as Law at the University of Santo Tomas. She's a former Housing and Land Use Regulatory Board HLURB arbiter for the National Capital Region and currently OIC Director of Homeowners Association and Community Development Bureau of the said agency. It is our privilege to welcome Attorney Maria Lorina Ling Hoson Rigor. Magandang hapon po, ma'am.
Magandang hapon po, Attorney Toto and Attorney Joyce. Sa mga participants po, as mentioned earlier po ni Attorney Toto, no, I am the officer in charge of the Homeowners Association and Community Development Bureau of the Department of Human Settlements and Urban Development. And he mentioned also earlier na arbiter ako. Because prior to the creation of the Department of the DSUD, paano yan relatively bago yung DSUD. Na-pass lang yung, it was created by virtue of RA11201, which was passed in February 2019. Prior to that po, di ba, merong HADC and HLURB. Yung mga functions ng HADC and HLURB, consolidate, and then the department has been created. And po, the department has three bureaus. No? The first is the environmental and land use and urban planning and development, and the housing real estate and regulation development bureau, and the Homeowners Association Community Development Bureau, of which I am now representing. Yung HOA, the HOA has, there are three divisions under the HOA. Yung una dyan is the Policies and Standards Division. Yung pinaka-core function ng policies is to formulate and amend the rules and regulations for the implementation of Republic Act 904. The second is the Capacity Development Division, which is the main concern is to capacitate regional offices or the implementers of the issues of the rules we formulate, and the Monitoring and Evaluation Division. Let me state then, the department has jurisdiction over all homeowners associations. Siguro kaya naging familiar si Atty. Toto. Maybe I was invited in one of the activities sa mga HOAs, or maybe may nagreklamo sa mga HOA. Kami talaga yung humaharap noon. I'm with the prior nga sa HLURB, arbiter din ako. So talagang marami mga issues, controversies with regard to homeowners and homeowners association. Let me state, homeowners associations are they're governed by Republic Act number 9904. Under 9904, the jurisdiction before is with HLURB. But with the passing of RA11201, technically na-amende na transfer yung function na regulating the HOAs, na-transfer na siya sa Department of Human Settlements and Urban Development. Alam nyo po, maraming mga questions diyan. When we say kasi HOA, inaakala nila even the condominium corporations kasama dun sa HOA. Pero gusto ko lang i-state to kasi under 11201, it is clear now that they should register, supervises, and regulates HOAs in subdivision projects and government housing projects lang po. So with that, sana medyo ma-clear na wala kaming jurisdiction over condo. Kasi yun talagang pinaka-issues. Diba, Atty. Toto, parang ganyan. Kasi
actually, Attorney Ling, you took the words out of my mouth, because normally when we have clients, the first thing that they ask is, where do we go to? Usually sila, condo association, yan yung pinanggagalingan nila. Hindi ba tayo pupunta sa HLURB? Noon, no? Okay, for this, or do we go to the SEC because it's an intra-corp, no? Di ba?
Na-clear po. Dati rin po. Actually, there was a time also sa HLURB. We accepted applications for registrations of condo, pero there's also a case, kaya meron din may jurisprudence po dyan in-explain dun sa, di ba? In-explain dun sa case na hindi talaga kasama ang condo. They're not covered by RA 9904. So siguro the lawmakers when they crafted na 11201, nakikita nila na may problema talaga doon. They made it clear na condo projects, except those of course developed or owned by the government. Say mga high-rise, yung HDH shops.
So Attorney Ling, pareho yan Attorney Ling, kagaya yung mga nakikita dati, yung mga parang mga bliss or tenement housing, then they were formed an homeowners association. Yan po ay sa inyo.
Sa amin po yan. Kasi di ba pagka ganyan po kasi walang transfer of ownership dun sa di ba? Sa land po. Kaya pwede po sa amin. So,
and therefore, yung tungkol do you advise, kasi ang ginagawa ho namin kapag may kliyente, minsan kasi ang language nila on the ground is that even if they're part of a condo, magmi-meeting ba yung mga homeowners? Yan yung kasi lalo na kasi it can be a condo association siguro si Atty. Joyce, familiar siya dito. Condo association siya, pero townhomes na magdidikit-dikit, di ba? So, condo association, townhome, homeowners. So, parang top of mind nila, we will go to HULRB, and many times we want to explain that you have to wear a different hat. You are a member of a corporation and it becomes intracorp. Diba?
Yeah. Opo. Yes po, I agree.
Oo.
Yeah.
Siguro ma'am sa educ natin, no? Kasi minsan mismong officers ng mga condo association ginagamit yung term na homeowners eh.
Well, technically homeowners talaga sila, pero define kasi sa 9904 kung sino yung mga homeowners. Isa naman po, may mga issue dyan. I'm sure alam niyo po, Atty. Toto, Atty. Joyce, mga iba pag ayaw nila yung condo corp, mag-create ng bagong association yan. Yun, ginagamit na yung homeowners na yan.
Yes, that's right. Because that I saw that little aberration, and therefore they say that they will now go to HLURB at the time. No, how is it right now? If they opt for that particular because it's really politics inside, di ba? Yeah. Okay. Oo. If they opt to do that, where ultimately if there there will be actions or remedies that are to be sought, who has jurisdiction if they opt for that?
Pagka ho opt for what? Kasi talagang we deny all applications po. Okay, the unit owners we just advise them to go directly to register with the Securities Exchange Commission. Kasi nangyayari po minsan, even pag nagkaroon ng kaso, pati ho yung mga regional offices namin na-i-implead for the revocation, yun ang inaano namin doon.
Thank you for that, Attorney Ling, because it puts order. Because what has happened, and as you've narrated, it can happen that before HLRB offices will take cognizance of that, and then it becomes you get tied up with the politics inside the community, so to speak. No, they're not happy with the association. They will form their own, and then we're not bound by that. Yun.
Yes, sir.
Please continue, Attorney Ling, sa kwento mo po sa amin.
Okay yun. Now, yung sa 9904 nga, medyo nagkakaroon din ng issue. Yung Republic Act number 9904 is entitled Magna Carta for Homeowners and Homeowners Associations. Parang inaano namin yan, it is not only for the HOA, but also for the homeowners. I think ang wisdom po dito kasi, we would say na kasi under 9904 po, membership in associations is voluntary except when it is stipulated in the contract to sell or deed of sale, or it is in the deed of restrictions, or if membership in associations is a requirement for an award. Kasi parang for an award for under the CMP or mga NHA or housing programs natin. Kaya inaano namin dyan, hindi, kasi di ba sinasabi nila, the association only has the authority to collect sa mga homeowners, sa mga members lang. But we remind them, andun yung even andun din yung mga rights and the duties of a homeowner who is not a member of the association. Sabi nga po namin dyan, di ba, sabi po namin dyan, not all homeowners are members of the association, but the members of the association must be homeowners. Yun lang po yun.
Okay. Yun. The little angel that keeps popping onto my screen says that we proceed to a Q&A, and actually we've started it, but I would like to hear from Attorney Joyce. Attorney Joyce, we have from some of our participants a question here. What are the basic homeowners' rights and responsibilities?
Well, basic is the right nila, as homeowner is they get to enjoy the property. They can sell it if they want to. They can mortgage it. There's the right to dispose also, the right to enjoy the fruits of the property. Along with those rights, they are also obliged to pay the annual real property tax and the special education fund tax. If they would want to build on the property, they have to follow the building code as to the height, the setback, the material requirements, as well as the other specifications. Also, they have to comply with the subdivision and zoning regulations and other Philippine laws. And of course, if they belong in a homeowners association, they have to pay the respective dues. Tama, Attorney Ling? They should pay, di ba?
Yan, oo. Yan.
Yeah, dapat talaga.
Ang nag-strike sa akin na word is yung setback. Kasi parating ano yan point of contention, no? Yan yung ganyan, no? Because sometimes, no, we get to be very we have this mentality that the other person won't mind, no? If let us say a little plant goes beyond or the dog goes to the other side. I like to ask, siguro, okay, Attorney Joyce, as a segue to what I asked earlier, a homeowner or a homeowner association member, can this person claim, let us say, the road in quotes in front of his or her property for exclusive of private use? I could already imagine yung answer mo, no? Kasi matter of factly, pag may bagong subdivision, sinusunod yung okupasyo. Okay, kung di ba? Ganyan, mag-corner lot ka para may parking kang libre, ganyan, hanggang may makabili. So, the question ng ating participant, can I claim in quotes that tiny space of road in front of his or her property for private use?
No, the answer will always be no. No, kasi consider this as common areas. So as part of the common areas, this is enjoyed not only by you who's living right along the road, but also for the other occupants or other homeowners also to enjoy it.
Yes, that's correct, no? The thing there is that Attorney Joyce is correct in saying that, well, we have rights, but we have also responsibilities. And for example, in many subdivisions right now, they have even opted na there should be parking on one side for several days of the month and then on the other side. And problems are created if, let's say in medium scale housing projects, wala nang room for the ambulance or the bombero, no, to pass by. That should be, di ba, Attorney Joyce? There should be a free ingress egress if there are emergencies, right?
Yes, especially no na right now we are in the pandemic. Dapat ang lot natin or the road is very accessible. So you cannot just claim the road right in front of your house just because you're living adjacent to it. Actually, there are Supreme Court decisions on this matter that what you bought, that's the only property that you can use. That's the only exclusive property that you have. The adjacent lot, that's no longer yours.
And add natin, no, can you mentioned setback a while ago. Sometimes when we explain to some clients, they have difficulty of appreciating this notion of property servitude or easement. Can you explain, Attorney Joyce, siguro sa ating mga participants, no? What's this thing called easement or property servitude?
Yes. When you talk about easement, there are properties that sometimes they could not have access to the road or to the main road. So if that is the case, one property who has access to that portion of the road should give way to the other owner so that they would be able to pass through the property and be able to access the road. Kasi if they are going to buy the property, tapos wala naman silang access kung saan, nakakulong na lang sila doon. Hindi na sila makakadaan. So, they can still opt to ask for an easement. And then they just pay the corresponding fee doon sa may-ari ng lupa so that they will be able to access it.
Related to that, we've been talking about what's on the ground, like using it as the road in front of you as like a parking space, or maglalagay ka ng a shawarma stand there, or quick or or something, Now, I've heard of mga reklamo naman. I'm sure si Attorney Ling endlessly. Some property owners will they will do improvements, and then medyo mas mataas yung bakod, nabablock yung mga sunlight, ganyan, yung masyadong mataas yung wall. How do we deal with this? Is there any law that governs this, yung parang blocking of the light or yung the flow of air into a property? Attorney Joyce?
Yes, we have easement of light and view also. So kapag ganyan, the one who was able to build the property first has the right to restrict the other one who's building the new property na hindi niya mabablock ang kanyang light and view.
Great. Attorney Ling, we were talking about the organization of homeowners associations. What is the scope of the power, let us say, of the board of directors of a homeowners association with respect to resolution, rules, and regulations? Ano yung scope niya, and are there any limitations to this?
Yes, sir. Actually, the board of directors, they are the primary authority to manage affairs of the association. Of course, pero sa board resolutions, of course, they have they could craft the rules and regulations, rules and regulations policy sa subdivision. However, it is subject to consultation and ratification of the members, hindi lang basta-basta. Kasi most especially lalo pagka nakaka-apekto sa mga nakaka-affect yan sa mga members nila, except those that pertains to day-to-day activities. Siyempre hindi na yun, yung sales mga street cleanings lang. Pero most especially po, pagka may financial burden, additional financial burden, they really have to consult the members. Actually po, Toto, I would like also to take this opportunity. We already we have revised the IRR of 9904, and one of the prohibited acts is when the board implements rules and regulations or policies that have not yet been ratified by the members. Prohibited na po talaga yun. Kasi marami mga kaso po, di ba? Nalalaman na lang nila, pag-gising nila, bawal na pala okay, para humaano dyan, kailangan consultation and ratification of the majority of the members regardless of standing po. Yun ang talagang limit po talaga.
Now, I'll try to ask this as general as possible because I was in a certain way consulted about this, and working together with also our government officials in the housing sector. So medyo nagpapasintabi na ako, kampi kami ni Attorney Ling dito sa issue na to. In a way, I was consulted before, like what you've said. Let's say it's a full-blown tenement housing thing, Maraming membro, etc., etc. And the thing there is that nangyari yan, yung may mga impositions, may kinokolekta or bawal na pala yung ganito. And then all sorts of reklamo yung, hindi ako nasabihan mga ganong klase. Okay. Nakapaskil naman dyan. Hindi ako nakasabi, anong gusto mo? Bigyan mo ako ng load and then I will distribute it. These are, of course, many things like of this nature can be solved. They're not really legal problems, but they are governance problems, admin, of that sort. But then again, the thing there is that if there was one, is they had the tendency they look at their homeowners association as like being a small barangay. Okay? And then they will look to LGU people, no, even officials, they will look to the politicians to resolve the problem instead of, let us say, going to the proper governmental office to resolve this, no? Ganyan. So, my question is, in those cases, what would you advise these people who are very quick to do reklamo, and then is there anything na parang something like meron ba tayong internal arbit na wag niyo na munang palakihin kasi ang ginawa yung nakonsulta ako, pumunta agad sa LG yun, lumaki, tapos kakagatin naman ng politician, lalong lalaki yung problema. Oo. Ano yung pwedeng ma-advise natin sa mga taong to na these, well, of course we cannot know, they maybe they're busy, etc., no time to really reflect. Is there any system where they can go to the proper government office? Can they first resolve it within themselves, like a non-exhaustion, tapos akyat sa gobyerno, na hindi maging political matter, Attorney Ling?
Actually po, no, sa 99 offer din, parang if you created a HOA, dapat po may grievance committee kayo. One of the required committees yan. Dapat po sana yung mga ganyan, i-resolve muna yan within the community. I mean, doon lang muna sa association level. Para minsan naman kasi dyan, alam mo, minsan kasi parang petty rin eh. Baka mamaya, alam nyo, parang lumaki lang o galit lang, ganito. Now, pagka naman, minsan naman po yung mga HOA, wala silang grievance committee. So actually, they could, pwede naman po sila magpunta dito sa office namin. They could request for assistance. Kasi yung mga regional offices namin po, they conduct conciliation conferences eh. Pwede sumulat lang sila, lagyan nila yung pinaka-brief na kwento ng problema niya, and then yung regional office then would invite, in mga ganyan po, ini-invite namin nila yung board of directors. Pero at least, parang ADR na rin po natin yan dito sa atin eh, para maiwasan yung full blown talaga na mag-file ng kaso. So, minsan naman nadadaan sa usapan. Pero pag talagang wala, minsan naman talaga, mga iba naman kasi pride na lang yan eh. Or minsan talagang may personal galit. We just advise them po, mag-file na lang po sila sa Human Settlements Adjudication Commission. Kung saan yung sa regional adjudication. The HSAC is the reconstituted HLURB. Sila ho yung may, ito naman sa building yan, sila ho yung may jurisdiction sa HOA issues.
Oo. So bumalik yung terminology, Attorney Ling, na human settlements, no?
Yeah,
Kasi naalala ko nung nasa college, LM pa ako noon, legal management. Teacher ko si Toti Corona, the late Toti Corona, Arturo Corona, who was in human settlements at that time. That was around 87, 80s. He was a commissioner. So doon ako unang namulat na merong ganong klaseng opisina, no? Yun. Okay, kaya lang ang relate sa University of Life eh. Sa ibang issue na yon. But Attorney Ling, before I go to Attorney Joyce, in my short stint in government for around maybe 4 years or so, it was our resolve that as much as possible, we empower our people. Okay, to be able to resolve conflicts themselves, like as you've said, no, there's no grievance committee, then they can go to you. But even before they go to you, my question is, do we have already a mechanism where, or some sort of support where the officers or members of a HOA can go to you and have themselves trained so that they will be able to form their own grievance committee, they will be able to formulate their own rules such that government is relieved. It's not that government does not want to help, but government is relieved of what you say sometimes petty issues. Meron ba tayong educ na parang gagabayan sila kung paano sila mag-form ng grievance committee at ano yung mga pwedeng remedyo na gagawin doon?
Yes, sir. Actually po, mandated naman po ang department na magbigay ng orientation on 9904, yung mga rights nila sa implementing rules. Actually po, kaya lang actually dapat kami sana yung lumalapit, pero sir, sa dami po talaga ng sa dami ng HOA, talagang upon request na lang po. Like before po kasi as a NCR ako, no, hinawakan ko din yung HOA, halos po every weekend, talagang punong-puno sila para mag-orient lang kasi there are a lot. Marami, nakakatuwa rin po naman yung mga HOA. Sila yung humihingi talaga, sila yung lumalapit, sila yung gusto nilang ma-educate, gusto nilang matuturuan sila kung paano. So, nagpupunta po kami dun sa site, dun sa community. Kasi naiintindihan namin, minsan mga iba naman gusto nila, yung mga members gusto makinig din. One way din po, ngayon po, I think since bago po yung IRR namin, we would be releasing mga standard forms po. Yung parang hindi sila mahirapan, parang fill in the blanks na lang. Kasi mga board resolutions, yung mga sector, talagang as much as possible gusto namin. Kasi mga iba kasi, di ba, parang hindi nagsasabit bakit kasi walang oras gumawa. Kaya naisip namin, sige, fill in the blanks na lang tayo, siguro makakapag-submit kayo. Kami rin po na parang yun din, para matulungan din sila.
That's great, no? Kasi sui generis to eh. May sektor talaga tayong tinutulungan, no? Most of them, they work, no? They have their own, or let us say some owners that it's just the family members here and OFW, no? Yung kanilang mga those who are winning the bread, so to speak, for breadwinners in the family, no? That's great, no? Ang galing initiative yan. Siguro maganda maging catalyst siguro ang isang LGU or whatever, or yung mga NGOs, no? Tulong-tulong kasi ganoon rin yung ginawa po namin nung nasa MTRCB ako. Yung imbis na kami magpupulis, ayaw namin magpulis kasi we believe that lahat may kalayaan naman magpahayag. Yung mga sinihan, ginawa ho namin na sila yung tumutulong sa amin pag magdisiplina ng mga kung ano yung mga rules and regulations, no, that have to be implemented. May MOA kami with them, no, and because of that they feel great. And also schools, etc., no, sa yung more dealings with the private sector. Anyway, I have a cute question for Attorney Joyce, no. Okay, yan. Kasi eto, I'm sure na you have come across this. Baka pa nga kung nagkekled ka noon na you already have come across this. May nagtanong dito, very naughty. Safe ba bumili ng lupa at bahay in quotes based sa tinatawag na rights? Yun, no? Siguro you may want to say, tell us what these rights are from your perspective, no? Ganyan. And then anong sagot dun sa tanong ng mamang yun?
Okay. Since medyo generic yung question na tanong, I will try to specify kung paano ninyo dapat i-double check kung paano kayo magpo-purchase ng property. Especially here sa probinsya, marami kasing property na hindi na i-transfer and they are just relying on the rights bilang heir. And then sometimes properties are being sold and then afterwards, the deed of sale, they weren't even registered. So there was no transfer of property. Ang hawak lang nila is the document itself. So I would always tell my clients, we should conduct due diligence on this. Kasi sometimes I've already encountered a lot of issues. If this involves titles, ang daming nakalagay sa likod na adverse claim. If there is an adverse claim already and it's more than 6 months ang nagpass since the registration of the adverse claim sa title, that's already a red flag for you. Second, also, if you're going to do your due diligence, you should be the one to ask from the Register of Deeds itself na mag-furnish ng certified true copy ng title. Don't rely on the title lang ng seller. Kasi sometimes the annotations are not there. The annotations are with the Register of Deeds. Also, they would say that the title is lost only to find out pag nakikita ko siya sa annotations, ayun pala, naka-mortgage na pala siya. So, you have to be very careful also with that. Next, if it's going to be transferred and then the owner is already deceased, make sure that all the heirs will sign in the deed of adjudication. And if there are minors or there are other heirs that could not sign the document properly, please have an SPA with you, no? Para you are sure na whatever you're buying, the rights are all protected para they don't get to go after the property also. Kasi it would be tedious and there will be litigation talaga. And also with the tax declaration, please make sure also, sometimes don't rely on the tax declaration. I also ask my clients to provide a certification na the property that you're buying, if it's not titled, it should be an alienable and disposable land.
Yes.
Kasi it happened here, especially in Boracay, a lot of properties may deklarasyon pero forest land po. So kahit ano po ang gagawin natin, wala po talaga mangyayari dyan.
We will just plant trees and then we will live in the tree houses until we are papatalsikin tayo kasi hindi ma-alienate eh, di ba?
Hindi po ma-alienate talaga. So kahit ano pong gawin natin diyan, hindi po natin yan mapapatituluhan.
Attorney Joyce, actually mas sublime pala yung your situation kasi in the urban setting, simply put, right says there's a professional squatter occupying a significant patch of land. Okay. Yeah, 'di ba? Tapos I had a driver before. Sir, yung bibili ako ng 80,000. Oh, galing mo ah. Ano yan? Saan yan? Tenement housing? Parang yung sa tenement in Taguig. Hindi sir, rights. Rights. Wala kang ang right eh kung dumating yung may-ari. Ganyan. Wala na sir, nasa states na. So, one who issues to him, one who has been occupying it in bad faith, so to speak. Worse if it is actually government property. Inalienable. But these guys, they are able to you get to pay them for their labor, and then lo and behold, there are even concrete structures, ganyan. So basically, what can once you buy, if you're minded to buy, kung may gusto kang bilhin, alam mo na yung kung pwedeng ibenta yung property at walang kaakibat kumbaga na proseso or in quotes problema, because that's factored in the cost. Who bears the burden, the cost of, let us say, you were talking about our part of the Philippines, so to speak. Sometimes yung people will be so old already, they forgot to pay. They have familiar, they have the tax deck, but the real property taxes have already nag-accumulate na masyado, we have to wait for, like now I think there's a amnesty right now, yun. And then airship request siguro yung kasi dati in Rojas City, I used to have a radio program, yung ganyan mga developmental law. Himo kamo sang yung family tree, so that we know, kasi yung right of representation, di ba, Attorney Joyce, doon tayo biglang may susulpit yung anak, sabi mo, yun, What about yung mga ang pinanggalingan CLOA? Have you had problems?
With CLOA kasi, there are restrictions. You could not just sell it or even mortgage it or lease it for a period of time. I think there are 10 years and the 5-year restriction with CLOA also. And it would appear na ang dami talagang kailangan mag-sign sa CLOA and you have to have it canceled. So, unless you follow those, may checklist naman kasi na binibigay si DNR. You have to follow the checklist. It's not as easy as transferring those titles na walang restrictions.
Yes. And then, but the economics of the matter, actually, sometimes they would want, natamaran na sila, they don't want anymore. The next generation, they don't want to plant rice anymore or corn, di ba?
Yes.
Okay, computer na lang sila, or they would go abroad. So they would rush things like CLOA, etc. Why don't we bakit hindi na tayo mag-joint venture sa realtor or whatever, ganyan. Well, as lawyers, we know that happens, but people have to be very careful, di ba?
Yes. And also, Attorney Toto, I'd like to include, no, since this person, the person who asked this, he might be very interested already in purchasing a property na rights lang, no?
Yes.
Aside, if you are really interested and you think na malinis, okay tayo sa mga sellers and all that, please conduct an ocular inspection. Kasi for all we know, baka may mga settlers already na doon. There are already legal settlers. You wouldn't know until you would see the property yourself. And it could also be that meron ako na encounter 1,000 square meter na pala dagat kasama doon sa binibenta. So please, mag-double check tayo para sigurado tayo sa bibilhin natin.
Yan ang super sa atin uso mga maliliit na island, 'di ba?
Yes, oo.
Attorney Ling, related to that, if I want to go against a broker, for instance, no, you know, pag may sale, the house is filled up with brokers, no? Umaga pa lang, yung mga extra pa lang, nakachinelas pa nga yung iba dyan eh. Yung what particular office do we go to if, let us say, we would want to run after unscrupulous brokers?
Actually, you have to, kung ganyan po, you really have to file a case. If you want to, you could file a case sa Regional Education Branch po ng Human Settlements Adjudication Commission po. Sa AHSREPLAY. Okay. Yan. So, kung saan located yung property, doon siya mag-file ng case po.
And then, of course, dapat properly documented, no? So that under yung kaso. Kasi I link that with what Attorney Joyce was saying. Eh. When you do due deal, when you do all these things, we have to, I think one takeaway from our discussion today is really the need to document, no? Everything, no? So that everything is in order. Well, we have a few minutes left. I like to know, first kay segue to what Attorney Joyce was saying. Attorney Joyce, there's another question here. Maybe this is hornbook stuff for you, no? How many hectares or area of land can Filipino real estate buyers, investors, and owners acquire? What about foreign buyers and investors? Siguro yung so I leave that to you. You could very well imagine what the person is talking about, no? Yun.
Yes. Well, for Filipino citizens, if you want to acquire property for public lands, Filipino citizens can acquire only up to 12 hectares of alienable lands, no? And then if you want to lease it, you have the maximum is 500 hectares through lease. But as to foreigners, generally, the Philippine laws do not allow that foreigners own properties here in the Philippines. The exception would be if it is through inheritance. He was a former natural-born Filipino citizen, and they can still acquire up to 1,000 square meters of urban land and 1 hectare of rural land, if only for residential purposes. But they can still acquire 3 hectares of rural land or 5,000 square meters of urban land for business purposes. As to condominiums, of course, the 60% Filipino and 40% foreign-owned condominium units, yun ang fina-follow natin.
Okay. Thank you. You know, at least nabawasan yung trabaho ni Attorney Ling pag yun nasa condo corp, no? Ganyan. Bahala si SEC dyan, no? Ganyan. Well, siguro one final question. There's a this is rather crude, no? How do we get to, for Attorney Ling, generally speaking, how do we enforce our rights as homeowners, with respect to our property rights as members of the association? And let us say, like what you've said, sometimes they are, well, ordinary people, like yung sa tenement housing, etc. Is there any mechanism where they can get, let us say, where can they go to, let's say, for legal aid or some support with respect to documentation and other needs? Yan po.
Okay. Yung limitation po as property owners, no, ang ano nga dyan, ang ano lang, nagkakaroon talaga ng maraming issue dyan. But they have to comply with the deed of restrictions na annotated in the title or embodied in the contract to sell. Kasi di ba parang sabi nga dan sa ano, parang one of the duties po of the homeowners, both member or non-member, they have to comply with the deed of restrictions. Yan, of course, yung mga ordinances, yung zoning, yung nabanggit kayo ni Atty. Joyce. Kasi ano parang the association should cause the compliance Kumbaga, nakapasok talaga po yun. Mga iba po dyan, sinasabi nila, hindi naman ako member ng HOA, why would I follow your the deed of restriction? Sabi namin, kung as a title yan, kailangan you really have to follow. Pero as yun na-mention kayo na nga, pero parang ako hanggang doon lang, kung as a contract yan, deed of restrictions, but the HOA cannot just issue ng mga resolution na na malilimit yung propriety rights mo. I think hindi ko lang alam kung familiar kayo as a dyaryo, yung sa Ayala Alabang, the board of directors issued a resolution suspending the renewal of lease contracts. Ako ayaw kong pag-usapan yun kasi sabi ko, may lumapit sa amin, sabi namin, kasi parang kami parang we cannot just intervene kasi parang yung issue niyan, we would be touching on the wisdom na ng board
Yes.
Dyan, parang ang mangyayari dyan siguro nullification of the board resolution. So adjudication talaga yan. Kaya sabi nga namin, yan ang mga inaano namin na, of course, ayoko naman may opinion dyan, pero kasi sabi namin, kung asa deed of restrictions, wala tayong magagawa kung asa naka-annotate sa title, yung mga single family dwelling, yung mga ganun. Pero yun ang limitations mo talaga when you join. Di ba, meron nga pong kaso dyan nag-file ng kaso, anong sabi ng Supreme Court? Kung ayaw mo sumunod, ibenta mo yung bahay mo at umalis ka dyan sa subdivision. Di ba po? Di ba tayo ni Joyce, may gano'n? Parang ang sakit nun pero it's true di ba? Parang, yung ngayon po now that yung adjudication functions po ng HBRB is being performed by the HSAC, sabi sa department, you only regulate. Kung may problema, they could come to the office. Pwede naman kami mag-intervene, mag-mediate, mag-conciliate between two parties or even kahit who yung homeowner lang or HOA against HOA po. Our offices are open naman to everyone.
Your mediators are part of your plantilla or do you have something like volunteer mediators who come from let's say expert na sila sa mga HOA stuff na ganyan?
Hindi po, sir. Parang designation lang po yan kasi nag-start po yan, HLURB pa So hindi ganun karami yung mga staff noon. Kaunti lang yung staff complement hanggang, of course, na-carry over kasi we just continued the functions. So, kasi parang kumbaga po parang nakukuha na po namin yung mga gusto nila, yung mga issues nila, yung mga kiliti nila, nakukuha na po namin yan. And maganda naman although ang training lang po nila, talaga internal lang po talaga. And napapansin nga namin, yung mga iba po kasi gusto lang nila ng may nakakausap. May pagsasabihan ng problema. So mataas-taas naman po yung success rate po namin.
Pala kayong mga spiritual director, no? Ganung klase. Well, I would want to really continue with this discussion. Napaka-healthy and we are learning so many things. But our producers are already signaling to us that we have to give way to maybe the next session. I just like to ask from our two guests first. We like to thank them for their participation and giving their time and talent and their malasakit, so to speak, their concern and their enthusiasm into today's discussion. I hope you learn a lot of things, all that you need to know about the rights, responsibilities of homeowners, the nature of a homeowners association. But before I go on with my so-called paglalagom, I'll ask first Attorney Ling for some closing remarks, and then Attorney Joyce. Attorney Ling.
Okay. Thank you. First, of course, I want to thank you also na naimbitahan kami dito sa ganitong activity nyo. In a nakakapagbigay din kami ng kaunting kaalaman namin sa mga HOA. So hopefully po, yun din parang sinasabi ni Joyce din, pagbibili ng bahay, tingnan muna kung ano yung mga limitations niyan, kung ang tama ba. And kami rin naman po, mag-join kayo ng association. Ayun yan, parang same thing, maganda rin yan, advantage din yan sa inyo para matulungan din kayo maprotektahan yung rights nyo. And may also have this opportunity po na yung IRR po namin, we have the revised implementing rules and regulations of 9904. Medyo maraming provisions po doon, and hopefully it would at least substantially resolve yung mga issues na mga nakahawal sa mga HOA o mga homeowners association. Again, thank you very much for being invited here po. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you. Attorney Joyce?
Yes, thank you very much for the opportunity na binigay niyo sa akin so that I could guide you also and give you my insights on what are you going to do on buying your an affordable housing. One thing I'd like to share is that don't be scared to buy that house. As long as you know that you have already conducted your due diligence, you are assisted by the proper people, na there are titles available, and then you could see the properties, it's there. Don't be scared to buy that house. All you need to do is that you be equipped with all the other requirements and what you need. There's also Attorney Ling's office that will be able to cater you. So as long as you know the path you're going to take and all the requirements that you will be needing, you conducted your due diligence, there shouldn't be any problems. So enjoy the journey of buying that house.
Okay, great. No, thank you, Attorney Joyce. No, so for our session today, we learned so much. One thing is, well, normally you would hear this term from corporate guys o yung maraming pera ng mga tao. Pero ang isang takeaway dito ay yung due diligence. Due diligence, no? Due deal, ika nga sa law practice, no? Pagtiyagaan natin, tayo nagbabayad ng kumbaga ating pinag-ipunan, ay kailangan talaga na hindi tayo gawin natin siyasat. We have to investigate, we have to ask, okay, it's not enough that you just have the tax declaration, don't give in to sweet words, etc. But at the same time, don't also be so timid, because that's your journey. You have the right to housing, no? Affordable housing. At the same time, in all our discussions with Attorney Ling, while we have a very responsive government office and a responsive government officer like Attorney Ling, we have to realize that we too are empowered as homeowners. We know our rights. We know our duties. We know, for example, let's give time, no, to the homeowners. Let's not use it for selfish ends, but rather to make our community better. So with that, we would like to thank OSHDP as well as TGFI for sponsoring and making possible this session of Day 2 in our Affordable Housing Summit, no? The Home Everyone. Lagay na dapat tayo, gender inclusive. Everyone and wana deserves, no? And at tandaan lang po natin, no? Sa matalinong pamamahay, uunlad ang ating buhay. Ito po ang inyong lingkod, Attorney Toto Villareal. Nagpapasalamat at sinasabi po sa lahat sa atin na itaguyod po natin ang ating sektor ng housing. Marami pong salamat. Thank you very much.